This is the Zac Anesbury Show.
Welcome. This podcast clip comes from an interview with Ryan Buckle from Top Shelf International.
Those things.
Yeah, definitely. And flexibility seems to be a key in, if I didn't get a job at the Institute after my PhD, chances are I would have had to move out of South Australia as well. And that's something that you seem to have done at least twice. So the opportunities.
Yeah, I think this is what you probably want to try and match up here, what you want to do with your life and then how work sort of fits into it. Like, I think sometimes it's easy to go, oh, I'll move somewhere for the job. But I recognise, like, it's not rocket science sort of wanting to leave a smaller country area and living in a city. But it's part of the things that I wanted to do, and I wanted to see a bit more of the world. I travelled a bit in the lead up to sort of corporate life, but then it's the merging, where I can live somewhere that I want to live and I can see some of the things I want to see. So I think just being clear about you and what you want to do and then how the career fits in, I think is the best path. When you compromise one or the other, that's when you get yourself into trouble, when you're living on the other side of the world and you don't really want to be there, or you end up doing a job in a place that you don't want to live in either, which is kind of probably just as challenging. So I think being clear about you first is, and then, where the career path might take you. I think the only bias you might have is, making sure that you're just pushing a little bit, because a little bit of discomfort is a good thing for growth, I think.
Yeah, definitely. You don't realise until you're like almost on the other side to be like, wow, I made huge leaps and bounds in that, where I wouldn't have if I just did the usual sort of stuff. So you moved to more of an Asia Pacific role, is that right?
Yeah. So because I had the big dogs as well. I've got 2 Great Danes. Well, they're not the same 2 that I had then, but I've always had a couple of Great Danes, and my fiance was living in Melbourne. It was probably more a Singapore sort of job, just because of the way that it was going to work from just a proximity to all the markets. Like Asia Pac's a big region, and sort of Singapore's in the middle of it, so it gives you a bit less travel time. But Mars were great at the time. They just said, look, you can live, you want to live. So I said, okay, I'll base myself out of Melbourne, which is sort of at the bottom end of Asia Pac, which is not the easiest way to do it. But I was, sort of zipping up and down. It's not too bad. I mean, it sounds glamorous at the time. This is another one of the bright lights and trinkets of corporate life. Be like, oh, flying business class and 5-star hotels. It gets pretty shitty after about 4 weeks. But I think it's awesome. Like, you just got into a routine. I'd sort of get on the plane on Sunday afternoons. I'd be in Singapore by sort of 9:30, get a pretty good night's sleep, and then sort of come home Friday nights or Saturday mornings on the overnighter. And to be really honest with you, because the work was so stimulating, and I'd sort of be home for a little bit and then away for a little bit, 4.5 years just disappeared, which is really easy to do when you're sort of engrossed in what you're trying to do. Like, literally, 1 week I could be on the street in Delhi, and you're trying to work out how to build a portfolio that's around key sort of currency denominations. Like, you might want to get a little bag of pet food for 50 cents because you can't launch a 20-kilo bag of dry food in India because there's just not the available cash. And then a week later I could be in the Ginza in Tokyo, and talking to the guys there who turn over like 20,000 SKUs a year and a couple of range reviews in pet care. Like, it's just really opposite sides of the coin. So amazing experience. I mean, the cultures as well. Like, I probably thought I was quite fluent culturally before I got into the Asia Pac job, but soon worked out I was not. And the learning there, like, just different people's ways of living their lives and what's important to them was probably more enriching than the work itself, right? Cultural barriers are, well, they're not necessarily barriers, probably more just learning how people do things a bit differently. It's pretty easy when you're growing up in Australia and you see the world in a certain way, but that's not always the case. I think the values of good people are all the same, but how you do things. So I learned lots of little tidbits, and that's probably the start of the leadership journey, really, which was, it was a classic sort of influencing without authority job, or herding cats, as they would call it. The Mars universe is really built around the general managers of the markets, because they're empowered to do what they need to do to win. So my job is trying to find scale, right? So if 3 markets or 4 markets wanted to do the same thing, then you could get a bit more oomph behind it, because they didn't all have factories either, so you're trying to get them to sort of work together. But it was an amazing time, right? Like, you know, I wouldn't have otherwise spent as much time in China as I did, as in Thailand as I did, parts of Southeast Asia. I even got over to Russia a couple of times to learn about the Russian cat food market, which is just a juggernaut. They love cats in Russia.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So I went over there and learned about how they built the cat business. Like, you know, these are incredible opportunities and afforded to me by a brilliant organisation, and I got a bit of sightseeing in as well. So,
yeah.
Anyone that gets an opportunity like that in their career, you know, just to go, if it lines up personally for you, is it's an incredible experience, because you look at all the great leaders in FMCG, they've all had something like that in their lives where they've had to sort of pick up and, you know, go and drop themselves in a very unique market. And then I think for the ones that are at the top of the tree, if that's your aspiration, then they've dealt with a crisis in a foreign market with a foreign language too. Like, I think it might be the 4 presidents of P&G have all dealt with a currency crash, you know, things like that, which you wouldn't necessarily get if you stay in Melbourne, Australia. And I mean, we're going through a bit of it now with COVID, right? I guess everyone's probably learning a bit about it. But yeah, amazing experiences. So look, it wasn't necessarily an overseas live, but I was, for probably 24 weeks of the year, I was in and out.
Hey guys, it's Zac Anesbury here with just a couple of quick reminders. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, then make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. There are plenty more interviews to come with some of the world's leading marketing academics and practitioners. You do not want to miss these. In the meantime, if you're looking for another way to connect, then follow me on Twitter at Zac Anesbury. That is ZACANESBURY, for my take on the marketing issues of the day.